it's Steven, and welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday. Today, we're going to be going over the basic compass. So, a compass does a couple things. One, it lets you know where you're at, and the other is it tells you how to get to where you're going to go, or where you want to go. So, if you're using a compass, it's great to just have that. It helps you determine the direction, but ideally, you're going to want a map as well. So, things can get pretty complicated on how to use a map and compass, but today we're just going to talk about the parts and the basic functions. So, with this compass here, it has what all compasses have, is a base plate. So, this base plate has a few different items on it, and the main features are a straight edge right here on both sides, and it has little tick marks that have different types of measurements. Depending on what kind of measurements your maps have and the compass have, you may be able to integrate them together and use them more effectively. But some other important things that this base plate has is a direction of travel arrow. There's two arrows right here, and that's going to tell me where I need to be going. No matter how this dial here turns, I'm always going to be following those two white arrows on there. So I mentioned the dial, and on that dial there's a bunch of different numbers. It goes from 0 to 360, and depending on where you want to go, you're going to turn that dial. And the way I find out where I want to go is by looking through this dial housing here. It's a clear housing, and I'm going to lay that up against my map because I can see through it, and I can see the features on the other side of the map. Okay? So some compasses have clear base plates. Mine's black around the side, but I can still see through it. So some of the basic ones have a little bigger base plate. They might even have a magnifying glass in them so you can see all those small details on the map, because often maps are printed in really small print and it's hard to see. So I recommend finding the compass that works best for you, and if you need a magnifying glass, there's plenty of those out there already built into the compass. Alright, so going on to a few different things in the compass. We have a orienteering arrow. So that one is a small red one within my dial housing, and that's going to point to, usually it's going to point to north. Well, mine's always fixed in north. You can adjust it on some compasses, but mine is pointed north. And there's also a permanent magnet in here. Let's see if you can see it kind of stay in one direction as I move the housing around. So that's always going to point north. And the reason is because that's one fixed point that we'll always know, and it usually doesn't change, except when you take into account declination. So if you're in a general area within the US or other parts of the world, you find out how much declination, that's how far off north is, and you can set your compass and magnetic accordingly to that. Alright, let's see what else we have here. My compass has a few other extra gadgets on it. So if you notice, there was this mirror on here, and that has a couple different purposes. When I go and find out where I'm headed, I can point my compass towards that, and my mirror also shows that dial, the housing, the magnetic needle, everything in here. So it's almost like doing two things at once. I point to where I want to go, and I can line up my needle accordingly on that dial housing. So that's a great feature. Also, the mirror acts as a signal. If I have a buddy maybe a mile or further away and I want to get their attention, or I tell them, hey, this is where I'm at, I can use this mirror, bounce it off the sun, and give them a nice flash. So it's kind of fun to practice that once in a while. And yeah, it's just, I like having that mirror on here. Another feature that this one has is the lanyard. So a lanyard on a compass isn't meant to put around your neck like this. It's just kind of bad practice. And it's not very useful if it is around your neck, because one, you can't get the compass out far enough to see properly and to get your direction, and two, there may be some other electronics on you, maybe a GPS, a cell phone, even your watch, and that can disrupt the magnetic needle. So you want to hold it out fairly good distance, almost arm's length, or at least to where you can still see that needle and everything in there. The lanyard also acts as a way for me to calculate the distance on a map. So say I'm following along a trail, I'll outline that trail with this red lanyard and then mark off with a pencil or my finger take that lanyard back to the trail and see how far it is on the bottom of the map where it shows the scale. So it's a nice little feature to have. I recommend keeping a string or some kind of lanyard with you if you're using a compass. Another cool item is this whistle. It works pretty good. Small but effective. Lets people know where you're at or grabs attention. So that is the basic part of all main any modern compass will have all these parts in it. So I encourage you to go ahead and check out a compass, maybe get a map with it. There's plenty of tutorials and we can go over more in detail on how to actually integrate the compass and the map together. But it's fun to just play with, you know, get an idea of how that magnetic needle works. So thanks for listening in on Tech Talk Tuesday. Bye.